The Podcasting Morning Show is your morning meetup where podcasting meets purpose and creativity, sparking connection. Hosted by Mark Ronick, with 2 decades of experience and elevated by a team comprised of award-winning podcasters, accomplished entrepreneurs and producers, and podcast hosts with years of experience. Together, they form the backbone of the Podcasting Morning Chat, diving into the nuts and bolts of content creation, sharing real-life challenges, solutions, and success stories. Streaming live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time from Clubhouse, yes, Clubhouse, and available as a podcast just a couple of hours later, the show has evolved into a go-to resource for content creators worldwide. Imagine a mastermind group's collaborative spirit combined with the engaging vibe of a morning drive radio show. That's what we're all about. Learn more at www.podcastingmorningshow.com.
Most podcasters think their biggest problem is consistency. It's not. Their real problem is discoverability, because every day creators upload incredible content that nobody ever finds. And in a world where YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and AI-driven search engines are deciding what gets surfaced, understanding how discoverability actually works matters more than ever. Today, I'm joined by John Taylor, podcast strategist, agency owner, and producer behind an Apple Top 25 podcast. In this conversation, we break down why most podcasts stay invisible, why niche creators outperform broad creators, how AI is changing podcast search forever, and what podcasters need to understand if they want to build authority, audience, and long-term growth. This is one of the most important conversations I've had so far about the future of podcasting. So if you're building a show, building a brand, or trying to figure out why your content isn't connecting, this episode is for you.
You're coming from a different perspective from all the other podcasting hosts that I've had on, because you're coming also with the perspective of what it's like to run it through as an agency, what it's like to, again, have somebody else's creativity, their baby, and do the best that you can to be discovered, to again, to maximize the opportunity for people to find an audience. So we'll start there, because the one question even everybody that comes on, I ask them, what's the point? Why should you sit down, press record? Why should you start a podcast? For anybody who might be listening and going, I have this great idea, I have this concept, but why should you do a podcast as opposed to, say, writing a blog or any other medium?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a great question too, because there are multiple answers. It's like you said, the first one would be, I have this great idea. There's this story I want to tell, right? It all really, really comes back to storytelling. All right. So, the whole thing behind narrative podcasts, in the 1920s, they called them radio shows, right? It was just, their audio format for storytelling has been around forever. And whether that's electronic and you're doing a radio show, which is now a podcast, or you just sat around the campfire and told stories. If you've got a story to tell and you want to tell it, then yeah, you should start a podcast. That's a great idea. The other answer is for B2B and B2C podcasters. If you've got a product to sell or a service to sell that requires a certain amount of authority and trust, then podcasting is great to build that authority, to establish that trust, to explain, to have a platform where you can take the time to explain what it is you do, the service you created, the product you're selling, and really be able to get the point across to people. And in that respect, it's important to remember that podcasting is for the narrative people, for the ones who are doing true crime podcasts, podcasts are an art form. And for B2B and B2C podcasters, podcasting is part of your marketing stack. I don't know of a single person who finds entertainment value in discussing supply chain economics and these niche things that podcasters do. That's not fun, but it's your business. And so you want to know, so you started for one of those reasons, and it's an effective platform for both.
Right. I love that. You tickled me with that one, because I've heard that in some different form, but the way you described it, it really did make me laugh. So you built what, and I love this term, LDO, listener discoverability optimization, right? You built this as a framework. What was the gap in the market that you felt made that necessary? What were podcasters being told that simply wasn't working when it came to finding an audience?
What wasn't working, what podcasters weren't being told is that there is a foundational importance in your platforming and in your marketing. If you're going to build a house, you start with a great foundation, right? You start with this concrete
Right.
foundation, and that foundation is often the same. It's just a big concrete slab in one shape or another. But the house you build on top of it, all right? Did you just lose me?
Oh, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Just playing around.
I see. Okay, great. The house that you build on top of it can take, can look a million different ways and can have, different kinds of rooms and different wallpaper and different flooring and all this great stuff. But without that foundation, it does not stand up. And that's kind of what I discovered. I'd been in marketing for, I don't know, since the late Cretaceous period. And
That's a while.
the thing I kept seeing over and over was this kind of foundational lacking in podcasting. Part of it being because what we talked about before, that there's podcasting for B2B especially is part of a marketing stack, right?
Right.
And even just that word, a stack, the stack has to live on top of something. You have to have that stack very well balanced or it falls over. It doesn't work. It's not built on something. So that's sort of the approach we took. It's like, all right, foundationally, what needs to happen in order for your podcast to be discovered, in order for you to have an ecosystem that creates discoverability, that is something that's going to last you during your podcasting career.
Right. That's important.
And give you the best chance of being discovered by your ideal listener, whoever that might be. And to me, that's what was missing. There was a lot of, and still are, of course, a lot of like, hey, follow this tip, and hey, the algorithm is doing this now, and you should try this instead over on this platform. Whereas we're like, oh no, you need to take this holistic approach. You need to look at your entire digital footprint and look at every platform of your digital footprint to make sure it's all, working together as one discoverability ecosystem.
Right. Because, in terms of what people think, and they have this idea about the podcast market being saturated, one of the stats that blew my mind away is that by 2030, it's going to be a $50 billion industry.
Yeah.
It's not dying anytime soon. So this is why it's important to hear like what you're talking about in discoverability, because there's just going to be more people walking and venturing down this journey, whether it's from a passion point or whether it's from, their part. It's going to be part of their stack as a business lead, as a magnet to kind of help find them clients and work and build authority in this. This is what it's all about. So, most, again, podcasters describe their points of view they describe their content, but they don't really put a focus or a point of view on what they're talking about. So from an agency how do you help clients find that one belief that, that'll drive every episode, that'll give them the focus that they need to build a sustainable product that they can use over and over again?
Yeah. I'm going to say this over and over. That's such a great question. Because really that is a thing that takes time. I mean, discovering, let me put it this way. You ask any podcaster, what's your log line? What's your elevator pitch? Give me your 1 to 2 sentence pitch about what your podcast is about. And that has to include name, the pain point you address, or the story you tell, what makes you different, what makes you unique, what is your brand. Do that in 2 sentences. That is not easy, and that does not come quick. And I think really the answer to this question is that is something you have to develop over time. And so the more you're podcasting, the more you are focused on what your unique message is, what your core concepts are, what your key differentiators are, what your brand message, should be. You just keep podcasting it. You eventually hone it. You hone it down, and then you've got it. And one of the things that we do, not to go into the weeds, but I always go in the weeds,
go ahead.
when podcasters need help with this, then, one of the things that we do, and technology is making it pretty easy to do it on your own, is you download all of your podcasts and you get a transcript, or you compile every transcript of every podcast you've ever created. you compile, you web scrape everything you've done online. You take all your blog posts, you take your website, you take anything that you have, your LinkedIn profile, your social media, you web scrape all of it. You feed it into Chat GPT and you say, what makes me different? What are my brand messages? What are my core concepts? What are my key differentiators? What am I saying that's unique? And boom, there it is. And you get this idea of like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is, and the more that feedback that kind of resonates with you, then the more you know that you're on track, that this is really what I'm trying to say. And this is what makes me different. And it's that differentiation. That's something I come back to all the time. Cause it's like you said, there's room, there is room for 10 million podcasts, right? When you go to the counter to buy Girl Scout cookies, when they're hanging out outside the grocery store, you don't go up to them and say, I want Girl Scout cookies. You go up to them and say, I want Thin Mints.
Mint.
You're right. I want my Samoas. Give me my lemon meringues, right? Or whatever, my Savannah Smiles, right? And
sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry that you say that, but right over to the left of my shoulder is a table full of Girl Scout cookies because it was just meant to be for that line to happen.
I went through the Girl Scout cookie phase, let me tell you. But I still grab my Thin Mints and I throw them in the freezer because, there's just nothing better.
That's the way. Is there any other way?
That's what you got to be. You've got to be a Thin Mint, right? You've got to be a caramel delight. And it takes time. It takes time before you understand, what you are. Podcasting affords that.
Yeah. And that, man, I love the way that you really express that, because I think in terms of people trying to figure out how to actually take something so broad and niche it down into something that can be a really center focused point is, hey, taking all this information that you've created, all these things that you've done, and breaking it down to saying, this is what you do best, right? Some of the best steakhouses in the world, they might have like 20 items on the list. It's a 1-card menu that they give you, but they do those things so well, people come back over and over and over again.
Yes.
And it's the same idea, I say, when it comes to what you're talking about and creating your niche, your area, your genre. What is that for you? If you find out what that is, that's the magic that I think a lot of podcasters think, because they don't want to feel, boxed in. That's the word I've heard. Is that's a hard one. Is like, I don't want to be boxed in to just be known as this. But my counter to that is, why not? Why not be the expert in that?
Yeah. Why not do the one thing?
Yeah. Let it be the one thing that drives, because when it comes to what people will look for, they'll know where to come to look. I mean, to me, that's a lot of meat that gets left on the bone by a lot of podcasters. They don't realize that you could do one thing and do it really well, and so many people will come back.
Again, I'm going to tell you a one thing story,
Go ahead.
which is because what you said is so important. I'm going to kind of put a coda on it as well. Back in the 90s, I'm a musician by passion and still in a band, but I was in a band back in the 90s, and we got signed. We got signed to Atlantic Records, big old record deal, and we were about at minute 7 of our allotted 15 minutes of fame, and the record company came to us and they said, point blank, what are you? Are you a party band? Because these 3 songs on your album, those are party band songs. Or are you a serious artist band? Because these 3 songs, those are serious artist songs. And do you have 1 lead singer or do you have 2 lead singers? Because you and your brother are both being lead singers here. We do one thing. We market widgets. Tell me what widget you are so that I can market you. And we were all young and full of whatever. Exactly. We're like, no, we're artists. And so we'll do serious songs and we'll do party songs and we'll have anybody sing who we want to. And we got dropped. We got dropped from the label. We got dropped from the label because we didn't do our one thing. And the takeaway lesson was, you can do multiple one things after you do your first one thing and become successful at it. And there's nothing wrong with being the best in your box and getting a 6-figure sponsorship for being the best in your box, or selling your product or service to 1 million people because you are so good at this one thing. And then when you're done with that, you go on and do one other thing after that.
Right.
That's the way world economy works. People can't do two things. They do one thing. And
right. That's why I got into doing this. People are like, how long are you going to talk about podcasting? Goal? 5-10 years from now. Because what I love about it is the niche is podcasting. The broadness is that I can pull people from all genres of the world because podcasting has so many different branches, whether it is B2B, B2C, true crime. They all have the experiences though, whether they're agency owners, whether they're crowdfunders, whether they all have a way. And this being able to talk about it gives me the perspective to talk about it from every angle. So I don't see myself getting tired of doing this. I love having the ability to talk about it because I want to help people, again, craft the voice. And this is the best way for it to do it. So
excellent.
One of the things though, that like you said, you had a label. So it kind of goes into where we're going next is that you produced an Apple top 25 show in Traceroute. So what does it take to go from production and a strategy standpoint to reach that level? And what do you see most shows probably get it wrong before they even get that close?
Well, with Traceroute, we were very fortunate in that, and I'm just going to be honest here. We were very fortunate that we had really good infrastructure to start with. We had good funding. We had money to spend. We were able to put together a great team. So we had really good producers. We had top-notch people in the tech industry at our disposal as subject matter experts. We were really able to produce a very quality product, right out of the chute. And so we were incredibly fortunate to have that. We had incredible support as well with a team of marketers that were able to do some really cool things in social media, create really, interesting graphics. The podcast won the Good Design Award for podcast marketing in 2024. It was, it was a great campaign. And we did not do extensive paid marketing. And we...
Wait, say that one more time.
We did not do extensive paid marketing. So there wasn't a big pay per click program, wasn't, like I said, the most fortunate part is that we were able to put together a highly produced and very authoritative show. And it caught on. It was niche, it was definitely for B and C level IT executives and for wonks in the data center space. Okay. But it also had this kind of esoteric, more artsy connection to it, more cultural connection. Right. I mean, we went everywhere from, ancient tribes, in Africa who, where the historical record shows that they were looking at the possibility of warp space time 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, all the way up to now, and how a data center functions. So it did have this, broad appeal. It had a niche appeal with a broader secondary audience that was, available, as well. So on the one hand, I'm trying to be humble in as much as saying that.
Do the humble brag. It's okay.
Yeah. Is that it caught on really well, but we were fortunate to have a lot of really great resources at our disposal to make a podcast that good that it would, that it had the capability of really catching fire at the time. And, it's interesting because if you have that opportunity and you have those resources, you do have a leg up. There's just no doubt about it. And I would love to be able to say, no, you and your microphone. But what I'm getting to with that is that you and your microphone have an opportunity in a different space. And what I'm going to do for reference for that is I work with a podcast that I mocked earlier in our conversation. That is all about wholesale distribution. Okay. It is all about that. And that's it. It is wholesale distribution. And it is an hour and a half weekly of wholesale distribution. And this podcast doesn't get more than 150 downloads per episode and hasn't for the 3 years that we've been working on it. But the two hosts on this show are rock stars in wholesale distribution. When they go to their wholesale distribution convention, everybody knows them. And everybody says, you're the guys with the podcast. And if they if they convert one person in their audience to a customer, it's a $250,000 to $500,000 event. So, so that's success, right? That's success. And so it doesn't matter if you've gotten to the top of the charts, or if you have a whole bunch of money behind your show, or if you get a ton of downloads. Success comes to podcasters in many different forms. And, so I think that's sort of the moral of that story.
Right. You worded it perfectly, because you kind of mirrored a story of a gentleman I know by the name of Roger Wakefield, who he built his fame, his celebrity through YouTube, talking about plumbing. He's a rock star in the plumbing world. They know, who Roger Wakefield is. He's a local guy in the area that I live in, but he still speaks at YouTube conferences.
There you go.
He goes to all these things out. Like you said, well, how much can you watch as far as talking about plumbing if you're not in the industry, if that's not your field, But in that field, though, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like working in that niche. That's what matters, because it's the lead magnet that people see you with. And if it lands you the deal, it's worth it every single time. And that's what people don't see on the back end. They only see the idea of the, I hate to use his name, but the Joe Rogan guy, the guy that thinks, I had the $55 million contract from Spotify. That he's the exception. He's not the rule.
Right.
And for most podcasters to have that idea that that's what, expectation is one day, is I'm going to be doing that. I'm like, no, it's to find the little area. If it's beekeeping and you're the beekeeper and expert and you're the one that everybody, guess what? You have the authority now because of you and your mic, right? And building in what you're doing and what you've done in helping people craft a successful show. It is understanding what it is that you're trying to create that matters the most. And yes, you had the opportunity to have the monies and the dollars, and who knows, that might come for you, but it's usually the idea and the focus on what it is that you're actually going to be crafting that truly matters, whether or not it wins awards or not. Not everybody can be so broad. Like you said, everybody can't be broad and niche. That's a hard subject area to kind of broach for a lot of people, because again, they feel the idea of I'm in this box, and I'm not that kind of person to always be the box. So when it comes to Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, that's in the big one, AI-driven searches, these platform indexes, and they recommend content in different ways. What's the single most important thing a podcaster could understand about how their show gets surfaced that almost nobody's talking about right now? How do they find a way to be the one that gets discovered in a sea of however many shows are out there in this world?
Right. AI has without a doubt changed the game, and will continue to do so in a incredibly fast pace, without a doubt. And there's a couple of things about AI search that podcasters should keep in mind. One is the way that AI has changed the way people do search. It used to be all very keyword based, and we were all taught, in using Google, okay, come up with some keywords that are going to help you find the website that you're looking for, right? And now that has completely changed. Now you go on ChatGPT and you say, I'm a 45-year-old wholesale distribution representative, and I am looking for a way, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think what I'm really looking for is a way to, avoid supply chain holdups due to price increases in fuel. And I'm not sure how this is going to affect my business, but I'm looking for some insight on that. And that's the search. That's the full, that's the search now. And so your handy ChatGPT comes up and says, predicts that this is going to be the answer that you want to hear. And I'm emphasizing the word predict because this sort of speaks to the second part of this. So the first part is that these are long questions that people are asking, and they're being more specific. Being more specific is the good news, right? Because we're talking about being a niche here. And so the more specific that these questions come in, the more opportunity you have, as long as you're positioning yourself as that specific thing that the person is looking for. So the second thing to keep in mind is that AI is a predictive model. AI, ChatGPT is saying to you with every word it creates, is this what you want? Is this what you want? Is this what you're looking for? Is this the right word? I predict that this is the right word. Prediction goes hand in hand then with reinforcement. So when that AI bot goes out into the world to look for this answer, it's looking to see the cluster of words that you use, that the person using the search used, and is looking for reinforcement that that's the right thing, because it's trying to predict that that's what you want to hear. So on our side, on the podcaster side, that means that your marketing copy, whatever you do for your podcast descriptions, for your YouTube video descriptions, for your blog posts, for your LinkedIn article, for your social media content, for your website, all of that, the more you can create summarized information about your podcasts, and the more you can use your unique brand language and reinforce that across all of your platforms, the more likely that bot is going to come in and see you and then go to the next one and see you again and again and again, saying relatively the same thing over and over. And it's going to say, aha, here's the reinforcement that I'm looking for. I predict that this is the right thing. I'm going to take it back to my guy. So it's those two things that podcasters need to keep in mind, that searches now are very long form, are very niche based, and that to take advantage of that, you're creating summarized information that contains, again, your brand messages, your core concepts, your key differentiators, so that you get that match up with the AI search.
Woo. You hit on quite a bit. If you need to go, I'm going to clip this part, because that right there is a lot of magic that I think that a lot of podcasters have not realized yet, because there's still an argument, because however people feel morally, ethically about what AI is, but it's already here. It's already doing it. It's already affecting the podcasting world, whether or not you realize it. So I really love that answer. I actually took notes myself. All right. I'm going to also go into the next one, because so from an agency owner's perspective, how should a podcast approach guest strategy? Because that's the next pillar that I usually go into. And not just who do you want on your show, but how does the guest selection connect back to discoverability and your audience growth? Like, how do you approach that with your clients?
Yeah, a lot in that area has not changed from the beginning. You really do. I mean, first and foremost, you want to find guests that really align with what you're talking about, right? Who will have a new perspective on it or line up with it from a brand perspective. And I'll just keep coming back to this. Right. What is your brand? What differentiates you, right? And you still want guests that supplement that complement that, I should say. So that part hasn't changed. And neither has the need to have your guest promote. I mean, old school, but it's true. Your guest needs to promote as well. And I guess the most effective way of doing that is the more, it goes back to the point number one, the more the guest is in line with what you are doing, the more you, by featuring that guest, the more you're giving them content that works for them as well. It's in their best interest, right? I'm going to take this whole podcast, I'm going to make clips out of it, and I'm going to put it out on all of my socials, right? This is a golden content opportunity for me, all right? I don't mean to sound or anything, but, it is. So, I'll reference the podcast name. I'll link back to you. I'll do all of those things. And that's what you got to get your guests to do. Yeah. And that part really hasn't changed. But the more you can make it advantageous to your guest as well, the more likely they're going to do it. And that's the part that blows my mind, is unwillingness to do it. And maybe not unwillingness like, no, I'll never do that for you. I'll never repost your podcast. But more like, is that something I have to do? It's like, yes, this is win-win. What are you talking about? This is an hour with you. Why would you not post it? But they don't. With our clients, what we do is we come up with this one-page email that we tell them to send out with every episode. And it's hey, thank you for being on the podcast. Okay, here's what you can do. Here's a blog post that I created for you. You don't have to do anything except post it. You don't have to, it's right there. And it's so cool because it has a link to me, and I will post a blog from you that has a link to you. And now we're swapping links, and that's a good thing. Here's an embedded player. You just have to copy and paste this code. Here is a link to a folder with all of our social media clips with copy already created. All right. So it's all in this spreadsheet. It's just cut and paste. Here's all of our social media handles. Here it all is. And it's really easy for you. We've made this as easy for you as possible. Please, please, please do something with it. Right.
Right.
And,
well, I love that you do that. I do something similar. I tell everybody when I send you all the digital assets, that's everything that goes along with it. And with the advent of what AI can do, you can literally, again, when we're done here, this program will give me the summarized notes. It'll give me the transcript. It'll give me everything. And then just go put it into a workflow and say, let's create posts. Let's create social media things. Let's build them from Instagram. Let's build them and everything. And then put them all into this nice little folder and say, this is for you. This is your gift for coming on. Can you share it? Can you spread it out in the world? And I will promote you. Again, that is the win-win. I think that a lot of podcasters probably don't maybe pay attention. This is why this podcast is being presented for the new ones who come in. So they'll start learning what that etiquette is to say, it's cool to have that win-win situation when you have a guest on that they promote you as much as you are helping promote who they are. I mean, that to me, that's something that's been a learned lesson because like you said, there are people like, should I be doing this? Do I really need to do this? Like, that's where the part of asking, maybe this is not the right fit then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Before we move forward. Right. Yeah. And that's the part of the vetting process that a lot of people don't quite understand that it's important to have all these things planned out. As boring as it might sound, as tedious as it might sound, there's a reason for it. Mm-hmm. There is a payoff in the end. You got to understand. So I want to talk about the next thing, which is promotion. Right. So, that's why I stopped you when you said that. I'm going to use that one about you say we didn't use pay marketing ads because there's a lot of them that's what they preach. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying this is from multiple perspectives. And the point of growing a show without bots, paid ads, or gimmicky growth hacks, how do you organically grow a podcast that actually looks like something is being done right and it realistically will stick and help find your discoverability, your audience, and understanding that this, again, it is a long-term deal, but in building that, how do you approach that for anybody who might be interested in saying, okay, this agency's built an award-winning show, but what was the secret sauce for me to get there? How do I do this?
Yeah. For us, for what I found, it really comes down to a consistent and optimized ecosystem. And let me touch on what each of those mean, what each of those means to me. What is super important is that every touch point of your podcast's digital footprint, every platform that you're on, first and foremost, is optimized to its highest and best use. Okay. So let's take your B2B podcaster again, for example. That podcaster is going to have a podcast directory where they post. They're going to have a website. They should have a website, and that's a website that has both the podcast and their product that they sell. They're going to have a YouTube page, probably. They're going to have a LinkedIn page. I'm huge on LinkedIn. I'm not personally huge on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm bullish on LinkedIn. If you're B2B, that's where you're going to find your listeners. That's where you're going to find your guests, and that's where you're going to find your clients, right? It's an all-in-one package there. So you're going to have all these platforms. So question one is, are you optimizing all those platforms to their highest and best use? I'll just use one, for example, and that'll be YouTube, okay? YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, and it is owned by the first largest search engine in the world. YouTube is a search engine. That's how the algorithm acts. That's what it wants to be. That's why when you Google anything, you get 4 different YouTube videos about it above the fold. So are you treating, as a podcaster, are you treating YouTube as a search engine? So are you optimizing that platform the way you should? Are you migrating your RSS feed into YouTube? If you're not, then you're missing out on everyone who's listening to it on audio, and you're not getting on YouTube Music either. Do you have playlists? Are your playlists divided by topic? Do they each have a 5,000 character description that has keyword chum and hashtags and calls to action? Do you sort your videos by topic into those playlists so that you are telling the YouTube algorithm what your content is about and who should be watching it? Okay. So that's sort of like layer number one. Every one of these platforms has a certain way that it needs to be set up so that you're using it to its best effect. Okay. Then layer number two is the marketing copy that you create and that goes back again to sort of what we're talking about with AI search and reinforcement and, brand messaging and differentiating and core concepts and all of that sort of thing. And that's a twofold approach on its own. Are you creating this marketing content that is reinforcing your unique message across all of these platforms? And then number two, are you writing that copy to be optimized for the platform it's on? Remember, YouTube is a search engine. Your YouTube video description needs to be different from your podcast description because YouTube is reading it differently than your podcast directory is. So it's this combination of these two things. And when they're working together, you are creating a much more discoverable ecosystem than if you're focusing there.
Man, I'm going to tell you what you just gave is pretty much a masterclass for anyone who wants to learn how to start a YouTube channel.
And then I'm charging you $1,000, Gabe.
Exactly. Right. Because again, that goes back to the leaving so much on the table, and not realizing the potential of how you get discovered in the two biggest search engines in the world and how to convey a unique message to each one of them so that they work together and saying, okay, this is the podcast or this is the person that you need to find. Listen to them. And that's a hard thing that a lot of, again, podcasters, when they jump into this world, don't quite realize that it's not just putting it out onto a distribution and saying, bye-bye, CNR, see you later, and just waiting for it to wait. I'm waiting for my tens and thousands of listeners and downloads to come to me. It's not here. What's happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
They don't realize that's the underground work of how to actually find the channels to distribute that will get you what it is that you're seeking. I love that you shared that again. I'm still blown away. So what's going on? This is the fun part where I get to ask all the people that I have on. So what's now on the horizon for John Taylor and your agency and what you plan to do as far as again, in this growing and emerging market of podcasting? It's not going away anytime soon.
That's right. Well, let me give the answer.
Okay.
Here's the good news is you're absolutely right. Podcasting is not going away. And the good news for people who fear the end of the world from AI is that if you are a creator, a maker, or a doer, you're not going to lose your job. You, Gabe, as a podcaster, will never lose your job. This will not be something that can be replicated. I, however, am going to totally lose my job. I'm going to lose my job to AI so soon. I am quickening my demise by creating tools that are for podcasters. We're basically productizing a lot of our offerings into new AI tools that will allow podcasters to both produce, ideate, and market their podcasts or on a podcaster's budget. Basically. So our flagship app that hopefully we're going to be releasing here in the next couple of weeks, we're doing our first big end-to-end test next week, is a platform called podagain.ai. And if you don't mind the pitch here.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So this is cool, actually. So what podagain.ai is, it's a podcast ideation and creation tool. What it does is it's an AI that feeds into your RSS feed and it downloads all of your transcripts and all of your audio episodes. Okay. Well, it downloads all your audio episodes, turns them into a written transcript and analyzes the audio. All those written transcripts are converted into its own large language model. And then you, as a podcaster, can go into your proprietary content there, your 200 episodes, if you will,
Well,
and you can query it and say, okay, create a 15-minute podcast of my 5 best cookie baking tips for the holidays. And it will write the script based solely on your knowledge. And then if you go, oh, wait, I never talked about icing, write another couple of paragraphs about icing. It'll go into ideation mode and go into outside knowledge to pull that in. You can then edit this script in the browser, and then you can either use that script for your next podcast, or if you don't have time, you push the magic button, it clones your voice, and it creates a podcast for you. And I'm telling you, the voice cloning technology we've created for this thing is insane. And it can be your voice, or it could be a voice of a co-host, whatever you have recorded and have permission to use. So it's a way to repurpose your proprietary content in a way that you haven't had an opportunity to do before.
Oh, I love this. You're going to have to send me the details.
Excellent. Well, Gabe, I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been great. I'm such a geek and I love talking about this stuff. So,
well, thanks again, John. I do appreciate it.
You bet. No problem.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If today's conversation changed the way you think about podcasting, discoverability, or creator growth, make sure to subscribe and follow the show wherever you're listening. And if you want to connect with John Taylor or learn more about the work his team is doing, helping creators, brands, and businesses grow through podcasting, you can find him at act3agency.com. That's ACT, 3agency.com. And if you're building a podcast, YouTube channel, or creator business of your own, this show is for you. Because this isn't just about making content. It's about building something people actually care about. Thanks for listening to Podcast About Podcasting with Gabe Leal, and I'll see you in the next episode.
If you've been listening to this show, you already know the audio quality isn't an accident. Those intros and outros? Created with 11 Labs. And no, I didn't spend a fortune or waste hours in a studio to get there. 11 Labs gives you access to a massive catalog of professional-grade voices, or you can clone your own. Either way, you get broadcast-quality sound that makes your content feel legitimate from the first second. Right now, you can start a free trial and get 10,000 credits for just $11 a month. That's professional-level audio production for less than 2 cups of coffee. Click the link in the show notes and start elevating your creative process today.